I want to give a warm welcome for anyone who's here for the first time. Anyone who missed the first session, you can find the recording, but welcome to the Industry Disruptor. This is powered by UN Women, We Empower Asia, and yeah, exactly. And in partnership with the Do School. So we have a core team of all of us between UN Women, We Empower Asia, and the Do School to support you. But the real, I think, knowledge in the room and the biggest value of this program is your exchange with each other and with our guest experts. So happy to have you all here. We will have a pretty exciting conversation today. So we're going to start with a quick warm-up in breakout rooms, and then we'll move on to the bulk of today, which is hearing from Sonika Sarna, founder of Sonika Sarna Designs, who I will introduce right before we hear from you. But welcome, Sonika. Really good to have you here.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, such a pleasure. And then we will wrap today with a hands-on exercise that introduces a model that some of you may know. So it's the theory of change framework. And don't worry, even if it is familiar, we'll be kind of taking a unique fashion and sustainability spin on it. If it's not familiar, I'm excited to introduce that to you. And then we will have our closing again at 6:30 India time. So without further ado, I'm going to set up breakout rooms, and pardon, I'll be setting these up as I guide you through them. So you'll notice I speak a little bit slower on this part. So what we'll do in these breakout rooms is we will share your purpose statement. So for those of you who went through the activity last week, you already have a purpose statement that you created from that. Don't worry if you didn't do that yet, it's totally fine. Just share in your breakout room, what is your vision for the impact you want to have? And so this is just a chance for us to get to know each other a little bit. We'll be in rooms of around, let's see, around 2 people per group. Some groups will have 3 people, and you'll have 3 minutes for each of you to share in 1 minute or less. That's your challenge today. What is your purpose? What are you here for? So I'm going to send you into rooms now. It's Zoom magic, so we don't know who you'll be with, and I'll be hanging out in the main room if you have any questions. But Sonika will include you in the breakout room, so you can get a chance to meet someone as well.
Awesome, that'd be awesome.
All right. All right, here you go. And I will see you all back in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Aw, it's so nice to see you. Hi, Sonia. Hi, Anjali. Hi, Lavanya. Good to see you after our chats. Hello. Hi, Aparna. Welcome back. Gauri, it's so nice to see you after our email exchanges. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you got a chance to share and to meet some fellow sustainable fashion entrepreneurs. I feel super inspired by this group. I think it's rare to be in a group where there's this much common purpose. Hi, welcome. Great. All right, so welcome back. I think just about everybody is back in the main group, and so I want to transition us now to hearing from someone who's really been leading the way in so many ways in terms of ethical and sustainable fashion. So Sonika, thank you. I see you've started screen sharing. Just to quickly introduce you all to Sonika Sarna. She's the founder of Sonika Sarna Design, and is actually a serial founder. She actually founded a project called Project Thrive as well. She's been published in multiple publications around this theme. She's a well-known speaker. She actually runs a series that I hope she tells you about at the end of her talk, for those of you who are interested in more. But basically, Sonika Sarna Design. Sonika, I'll let you talk about it a little bit more in depth, but it's an ethical design and production company. And I think there's a lot that we can learn about how you engage artisans, Sonika, and how you work with organic materials, and how you just really look at ethics in such a holistic way. So yeah, I'm super excited to hear from you. We'll get to hear from Sonika for about 25 minutes, and then we'll have a chance to do Q&A. So as questions come to you, please write them in the chat, and then we'll handle Q&A through the chat. So without further ado, Sonika, I will hand it on over to you. Thank you so much. It's really lovely.
Thank you, Eva. It's both my honor and my pleasure to be able to talk to a room where really half my work is already done, because all of you are already motivated to be sustainable in the fashion industry. That was not the case when I started working in fashion. I'm maybe an oldie, but I started working in the year 2000, back when things like organic and eco-friendly and recycled and sustainable were not mainstream, and I would work in the factory environment and see garbage dumps and textile dumps and worker slums and wonder, is this what I went to fashion school for? To create more waste, to create more poverty? I mean, there has to be more meaning to my life than that. That was essentially the unglamorous beginning that my fashion career had. And that sort of set me down on a path, and I'm just going to take a few seconds to give you a quick introduction about who I am. The company that I set up essentially goes by my name, because when I started, I didn't have the money for branding. So I would just introduce myself as a person, and we've been fortunate to grow into a bit of a brand, I would say. We've been working in apparel production for about 20 years. And we figured out that if we want to have impact in the apparel supply chain, rather than try to engage end consumers, we want to change the minds of businesses, because it's the large corporations, as well as the decision makers in those companies who are making buying decisions. So if you are the owner of a brand and you choose to buy, say, organic cotton, your decision will have far more volume impact than, say, one person deciding to buy an organic t-shirt. I'm not saying consumer engagement is not important. It's critical because it drives change, but our focus for the last 10 years has been on interacting with brands and changing their sourcing practices. We've been working with global brands for a very long time, and I work primarily with the American and European markets, simply because when I first started, I didn't really have an audience in India. And my role is to study and evaluate the apparel supply chain. It has several tiers. Tier 1 being the factories who do the stitching, Tier 2 being the fabrics, and so on and so forth. And because I've been working in production for so long, I have spent my career trying to see how we can make every tier in the apparel production process more sustainable. Sustainable is not a fixed word, and neither is it a moving target. It is an evolution, which means when you engage with anyone who's making part of your product, you look holistically at the kind of impact your relationship with that partner is having. And so we look at really all of the social and ecological problems in fashion. We look to see across the supply chain, where is our buying decision affecting, say, the crops, the soil, and the water? And so we begin to look at organic material buying. We look to see if you're working with a particular textile community, is there a gender bias towards men, and are women being exploited and not being given equal opportunity? Can we address that as a concern? We look to see the quality of fibers and materials and see, are these non-biodegradable, are they polluting the oceans, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, it's a huge, it's a lifetime's worth of work as a fashion entrepreneur to be ethical and sustainable. And the downside is that you can join the fashion industry as someone who studied design and maybe attended a few programs on sustainability, and you realize that you're way in over your head, because no matter how much you do, there's always more sustainable options out there, and you feel like you're drowning. Or you can realize that as those of us who have accidentally arrived in fashion as simply creative people have actually inherited the wonderful opportunity to change our little corner of the world. I actually feel, and I always say this in my presentations, that if you are a sustainable fashion entrepreneur, you're essentially joining a revolution. And these aren't romantic notions anymore. When you study industry metrics, fashion is, I think, always in the top 5 of the most polluting industries worldwide. I mean, we're up there with petroleum and just like the worst industry in the world. So if you're actually a little person having this little cute fashion label, or if you're working for a fashion corporation and helping to make some buying decisions, those so-called little things, if you do them differently, you have global impact far beyond your comprehension. And that's essentially what I found in my own work as well. When we first began working, we were engaged with brands and helped them to make better business decisions. And we've then gone on to learn so much along the way that I spent the last decade formalizing that into an online education series so that these tools should be available to anyone who wants to change how they're doing business. We don't have a whole lot of time today because this is, like I said, a lifetime's worth of work. But what I'm going to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes or so is anyone in this room who's a fashion entrepreneur, I want to give you 3 or 4 critical things to think about. So when you walk away from this webinar series, perhaps there's one more aspect of your business which you can reevaluate to see, can I have more impact if I change this part of my business? Or can I have more far-reaching impact if I think about this? I just want you guys to walk away with more questions about your business choices and their impact. And if possible, stay away from the overwhelm, because in fashion, there's an information overload. So please take everything that I'm sharing with the spirit of, well, positive growth and evolution rather than being overwhelmed. That's my 2 cents. So diving right in, but that was a little bit about me, but diving right in, the program that we offer is essentially an ethical design and sourcing education module, and I'm going to touch on all 4 aspects of that today. The first most critical thing, if you are a fashion entrepreneur who wants to have impact, sustainable, organic, ethical, social, all of these beautiful words, it begins with you. It's almost like growing up. You know how a typical business thinking can sometimes be, oh, I did the market research and organic is trending, so I'm going to have an organic fashion label. Well, if that's what got you started, okay. But I have to say, you cannot move forward unless you have a clear internal intention as to why you are in fashion. Today, we are not in an industry where you can be in fashion for a job or to create something pretty. You cannot escape the impact of your business choices. So there is a lot of internal work you have to do to figure out the kind of entrepreneur or the kind of fashion industry professional you want to be. You want to figure out, what am I going to do that's going to affect the world? Because it could be a bad effect or a good effect. And so the next thing then becomes, am I geared to figure out the impact of my business decisions so I can take better business decisions? But the compass, let me kid you not, is internal. Which means unless you are clear that, okay, I'm going to have a company that's better for the environment, I'm going to have a company because I want, like this photo here is me and the ladies at Project 5. I started this because I'm a woman, I come from a conservative North Indian family, and I felt like I always lacked opportunity because I'm a woman and I wanted to change that. And because that was the internal motivation, I found a way. So responsible entrepreneurship, figuring out why you want to do something is step 1. And you have to go deeper and figure out what's motivating you to do change. Without that, there is no moving forward. Now, let me break it down to the few modalities that are words that are thrown around and clubbed under the umbrella of ethical fashion. What worries me about specifically the market in India is that a lot of these terms are being co-opted and misused by a bunch of people. And so at least as responsible fashion entrepreneurs who have an opportunity to be a part of a brilliant platform like this where we can all learn more, you want to understand what these terms mean, use them correctly, and then create a business that's authentic to a particular cause so that the brand loyalty, the consumer loyalty that you have is authentic. And so if you are an authentic artisan-made brand, for example, and you've done a good job of telling the story of how you are authentic, then the consumer will not only be loyal to you, but more importantly, when someone else is trying to piggyback the artisan product trend wave and is selling fake stuff as handmade, the consumer will have been educated by you to not do that. So understanding what's necessary to create a particular kind of social business and then building that into your story to share with your consumers is critical, not only for the success of your business, but also for positive social impact. Because if we have 100 of businesses out there who are saying they're artisan made, but they aren't actually artisan made, that's doing damage to the artisan, the environment, and to your business. Bad for everyone. So the key things that we talk about when partnering with indigenous artisan communities is it isn't enough to say that your product is artisan made. Your business structure needs to be built on a fundamentally respectful and equitable relationship with the artisan community. So visiting the area, understanding the history of the craft, seeing the kind of environmental impact the usage of local materials has when creating the craft. What happens when you place an order? Is the community prospering financially year to year? Are you paying the state benchmark, state legal minimum wage, or are you creating economic opportunity but actually underpaying people and helping them remain poor? The community partnership that you have, are you doing design interventions that are helping the community to have more opportunity, or are you actually suppressing generations of cultural heritage by abusing a tradition and using it for your own benefit? Are women being employed in the community that you're working with? Are they earning enough money to be able to keep their kids in school and afford healthcare? Are children working at the artisan project that you've given this order to? So simply to say, hey, this is a block printed shirt made by a village in Rajasthan is not artisan made. That's really only 10% of the story. Who is the printer? What is the community's financial, ecological and psychological health? By working with them, are you only earning money for yourself, or are you actually having a positive impact on the health of the overall community? And that requires you to have not only a personal relationship and an open and transparent contract with the community, but you also have to keep going and measuring impact of the wages you pay, the hours they work, how the communities are transforming in the course of their relationship with them, so that you can know if you're actually creating positive change or not. And then this information that you gather can then be the tools you use in your marketing. So if we work in a community, we proudly say that the artisan partners, the block printers, is actually a photo from them that we work with in Bagru. There's 20 of them, and we're proud to say that more than half are women. This is actually a husband-wife team, and what's really cool about this particular community is we know that all of the husbands and wives are working together, and all of their children are in school, and some of them going into college. And we know how much they're earning and what their financial situation is. So when we say proudly that they are artisan partners, we're actually saying that our relationship is good for me and good for them. That's what the term fair trade or an equitable trade relationship means. So again, when working with artisans, a very popular modality in ethical fashion, there's far deeper you have to go. And I'm covering really briefly some of the things that you have to be thinking about. Another key aspect of ethical fashion or sustainability is the environmental impact. We forget that the clothes we wear are a crop. Cotton, jute are being grown in the soil. Viscose is actually being harvested from wood. And so the materials we're using have direct impact on the soil, on the water, and the dyes being used are having direct impact on land, water, wildlife, and human exposure to chemicals. Again, this is a huge topic of research, but what I can explain is that there are various modalities. There's recycled materials, there's organic materials, there's traceable, certified materials, where you can study and research and understand the origin of the material. Where is it coming from? How was it produced? Was it organically grown using no chemicals? How was it spun into a yarn? How was it woven? How was it dyed? And researching all of these processes, you have to think about the environmental impact of textiles. So here's where it gets a little bit crazy. You could be working with the block printer in Rajasthan, but it's up to you now whether the base fabric is organic cotton or generic cotton. I will not go into more detail, but I will if you take one takeaway from sustainable materials, it is this: that do ask yourself if a material you are using is non-biodegradable. Which means things like polyester, things like nylon are plastic essentially in nature. They're petroleum byproducts, which means if you burn a fabric and it creates a hard ball at the end, it's really as bad as using a plastic box, and it's going to sit in a landfill or as a microfiber in water forever. So while you're free to research organic and ethical and sustainable materials, if you are an ethically responsible company, you should be banning non-biodegradable materials, which are polyester, nylon, and others are elastane, lycra, and lurex. So that's something you want to think about. But in addition to human impact, this is another modality which is thinking about environmental impact from your choice of raw materials. The third big aspect is you source your artisan partner, you figure out the materials, and then you have to create a product. People do not realize that creating apparel is actually an incredibly technical and almost industrial process. A lot of the international fashion movement, because the Rana Plaza often says, like I see these hashtags that say, oh, made by people, not factories. What is a factory? A factory is a contained industrial environment which has heavy machinery that's required for a process. And a factory is required to follow severe and pretty stringent codes of conduct to make sure that their workers are safe. So I do not believe workshops are good, factories are bad. What I want you guys to understand is depending on the product you're making, you have to understand how technical your product is. You are making apparel. The truth is it's an incredibly technical product. And so you want to first figure out if your partner has the technical capability, machinery, patterns, ability to create specs, so on and so forth. But then the other thing is to visit the facility and see the human working conditions. Common sense things like exposure to toxic chemicals, a fire exit if it's a large group of people working in an area. Do you have exposed wires? Things like that. But if you go deeper, really any manufacturing facility has certain legal and social compliances that they have been asked to follow by other brands, and you can research and ask for their compliance papers. Also, within India, you either come under the Factories Act or you're a workshop that comes under a sole proprietorship, and the government has various legal and safety mandates for workers in these areas. You have to read up and ask more questions and make sure that the partner that you have is not only safe, number one, but number two, also paying the correct wages to the workers. So factories versus workshop is not a good or a bad thing. Whoever your partner is should be safe, legally compliant, and paying their workers well. I think that's pretty much, I would say, what we have time for, which is the 3 or 4 key areas you want to be thinking about when you're deciding on the products you're going to create and the brand you're going to build. The one thing I will leave you with is that these are not things you think about as an afterthought. When you are designing a collection, whatever your creative inspiration is, you have to think about design is not how something looks, it's how something is made. This is my favorite quote of all time. A sketch is not a design. Understanding what's the material I'm going to use, who's going to be making it, how many of these do I have to make, what is the social and environmental impact of these materials, all of this is what's creating the design. And so your brand identity, which rests on your product, rests on your ethical business decisions. So you can't wake up one morning and paste your ethical policy on top, which is what H&M does, right? They give themselves a facelift every day, but it's all bullshit. Sustainability starts from the ground up. Every business decision you take from morning to night has to factor in the ethical impact that you're having when you're creating products. We have a longer, more intense program. It's actually a 4-part webinar series that we launched. If you guys go to my website, there's more information on there. But I'm hoping that in the time that we've had, I've given you some things to think about. And if there's some questions I can answer like on the spot in the time that we have, I'd be happy to do that.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sonika. Like you said, this is like a lifetime of work boiled in 25 minutes. So I'm impressed by how much you covered. And just for the sake of time, what we usually do is read out one question at a time, but as many as we can. So I wanted just to start, we have a bunch of questions. One from Kanak was around, would you say it's possible for brands to be 100% sustainable? And for a little bit of context, Kanak has a European brand, but that receives products from suppliers in India, and she's trying to get rid of the plastic in their packaging. So would love to hear your take on a sustainable alternative.
So that's a really, really wide question, Kanak. Thank you for posting it. I'm going to guide you in a different direction altogether. Is that we have to understand that as is the case with all of life, we don't live in a world of absolutes. What we consider 100% sustainable today, we could find 5 years from now that we could be doing more. What you do as a fashion entrepreneur is you establish targets for what is feasible for your business and where you stand a financial quarter at a time. So let's just say you're a fashion brand that wants to work with artisans and your goal is to be able to employ 5 people in a community. You start there. You succeed in that and you say, hey, but I figured out now that they are using really horrible toxic fabrics and I want them to be organic. You look realistically and financially at what's possible for your business and you give yourself, say, a year to become completely organic. Then you figure out, like you said, that you want to eliminate plastic waste. By the way, if you email me, there's options of glassine and a bunch of other biodegradable plastic options that I can share the suppliers with you. You can contact them directly. So we answer questions like this as well. So all of the brands we work with who are already organic are now eliminating plastic in their production as well. The next step might be that you figure out that the carbon footprint of bringing products from India to another country are numbers that are alarming. So you might find ways to either offset the carbon footprint, or you might find certain products better made in country and certain authentic products coming from the country of origin, like printing should come from India to avoid cultural appropriation and so on and so forth. So you could become 100% sustainable today, yes, but I promise you 6 months from now, you will learn that there is more you could be doing, as is the case of really anything in life. The point is not to get overwhelmed, but you know how we have, it's like saying, can I ever be 100% as big as I want to be as a brand? No, you could be this big and want to be even bigger. But the thing is, like, you have financial targets, you need to have environmental and social targets in your business.
Awesome, thank you. And please feel free to keep posting questions. So related to that, since Sonika, you mentioned that you're happy to share a few resources around that. I know Anjali also asked about alternatives to polybags. So any sort of
sorry, so I mean, oh, sorry, I lost you there. What was the question? Eva? Sorry.
Sure, no worries. I know Anjali also was curious about alternatives to polybags or waterproof materials. And then Sonia asked about elastic. So if there's anything that you can share, happy to do that in the Do community as well. But it sounds like this is a hot topic.
Okay, do you mind terribly if I just quickly take notes? Yes, I have options and I'll share them with you guys. So things to research right away is that there is which biodegrade in 6 months from exposure to natural materials. And biodegradable is not like plastic that just becomes microplastic. They actually have to be compostable. And then there's recently a new innovation called glassine, which is really a paper polybag that has been treated to be more waterproof. Unfortunately, glassine sources are in China. I'm not thrilled about that. The cornstarch source, however, is in India. They are called Nature Tech, Nature, and Tech is TEC. You look them up, there's a local office, and they're fairly easily accessible.
Thank you so much, Sonika. Awesome. There may be another question, and this came from Unity. And I hear someone, if you wouldn't mind muting, go ahead and put your question in the chat, just because we find that with big groups, it's a little bit tougher. I would love for people to ask their questions live, but it's a little bit tougher in a big group. So there was a question from Unity, and I heard this from a lot of you during the interview process around sourcing and generating organic material and how that can often be more expensive. And if you could just speak to the considerations of that as an entrepreneur, I know that was a big theme in a lot of the applications.
Yes, so I have to explain one thing to you, that organic again is a very, very wide term. I'm going to go back to my slide really quickly. You have to understand that fabric is not one thing. If you look at the slide that I'm sharing now, you're looking at fiber, yarn, weave, and dyes. And there's a ton of industry certifications for each of these. In the interest of not overwhelming you guys, the most common organic certification is GOTS, or the Global Organic Textile Standard. And the way that's a lot of these certifications, which are really easy to navigate, because you go on their website and all of them have a database of all of the manufacturers of their certified products are literally listed on their website. So you go to the GOTS website and they'll have like 5,000 names of Indian spinning mills or suppliers that hold fabric. So not only will they name the supplier, they'll also name what that supplier manufactures. So if there's cotton fabric or certified jute or silk and so on and so forth. The specific challenge to organic fabrics is that there are two types of certifications, and this is a big trap, so I'm going to go into this. Is that if a company is GOT certified, they have something called a scope certificate. So if I am certified to stitch organic fabric, my scope certification says stitching. If I am certified to weave organic fabrics, my scope certification says weaving. That does not automatically mean that every fabric you buy from me is organic. So particular meters or yardages come with a third-party certification called a TC or a transaction certificate. You must insist on a transaction certificate, which is a document that links to a specific batch of fabrics. So if you've got 500 meters of something, you know that those 500 meters are organic if you have the TC, because otherwise there are no visual characteristics to verify. Now, because this is a complex legal process, organic materials are actually not that much more expensive to buy given the environmental cost. Typically, organic cotton costs at the most 30% more than regular cotton, and given the kind of chemicals and pesticides we're releasing into the supply chain, I would say sell fewer materials, change your profit margins to adjust the 30% and go 100% organic. So I think cost you have to understand that the costs you're functioning on are not the real costs. So organic isn't more expensive, organic is the real cost. However, there is some competition in the industry, so you can talk to 3 or 4 different organic mills, get prices from all of them so you understand what an organic fabric baseline cost is. The challenge you will face is that organic minimums tend to be high. They want hundreds, if not thousands of meters to be able to produce fabric for you. And if you go into the open market, they'll sell you 100 meters and say, this is organic, madam, but where is the proof? There isn't any. So as a brand, this is what I meant. You have to design into your ethical sourcing practice. So let's just say you have a collection of, say, 30 styles. You invest in that 500 meters of organic cotton in one base quality, and then you use it year after year after year in every collection, rather than designing 50 different fabrics and making 5 pieces in each and making it impossible to be organic. I give the example of No Nasties, which is an organic brand in India. I think the only one that's well known for being organic. You look closely, their entire collection is one single knit quality, but they've mixed up the prints and the shapes to be able to circumvent the problem of minimums. So this is just one way you change how you do business to work backwards from the benchmarks that organic mills give you. Does that, do you think, answer the question, Eva? You want me to go into more detail?
Maybe I'll put that back out to the group. If you have follow-up questions about that, please write them in the chat now, because I think that probably also raises a lot of other related questions. And I see that we have a few around certification, so this is just another big hot topic. Maybe another aspect of this, that I'm noticing from a few people is just how, so Ami articulated this really well, how exactly do you quantify the impact? So for example, the production of a garment saves how many liters of water and resources? And I know when you and I were talking about this session, we were talking about impact measurement and just how nuanced that is. So if maybe you could talk a little bit about what you've learned there, any advice?
Okay, so the thing that I will encourage all of you to do at this point is become more specific. So again, impact, very, very big question. You want to fine tune that to understand what are you going after. Are you talking about impact? So first of all, understand what does it mean to have to buy organic cotton. It means that no chemicals have been used in the process of production. So what is the kind of negative impact we had to begin with? You found that you were using too much water. You found that there was chemicals being exposed into the soil, as well as into the water supply nearby, or you found that workers or farmers were not being paid fair wage. The onus, and this is back to responsible entrepreneurship, the onus is when you do the research, what is the problem area you're trying to fix? And that is going to drive your gauging of impact, because we are not research students, right? We have to pick one thing and then go deep into that. Because there are so many different aspects, you have to think about what you're doing. For example, if you talk about just water, and you Google, say, and yes, Google is your friend, believe it or not, how many liters of water does organic cotton versus non-organic cotton save? This is information that's already available online by people who are focused on research. And then you have to do some simple math. Let's just say if water consumption for organic cotton is, say, 30% lesser, you calculate that, multiply that with the number of meters of fabric you're buying, and right there, that's the water impact you're having. If you want to look at say you've produced 200 meters of artisan fabric in the last 1 year, you talk to your viewers about how many days in a month they work to produce those meters and how many hours in the day and what did they earn per day. That would be the number of employment hours you have provided to people who didn't have employment otherwise. So there isn't any one formula. You have to break it down and start with one place. Back to responsible entrepreneurship. What problem are you trying to fix? Pick that one thing. Do your research, there are metrics available online, and then you do the math backward to what you're buying as a business.
Wow, there's so much in here. And by the way, I don't know if you saw Sonika in the comments, but people are like, are you recording the session? There's so much in here, so thank you. And yes, as always, we'll share it in the community. I thought, Gargi, your question was again another one that seems like a hot topic and relates to a couple different questions from today and then also what I've seen in the group. So Gargi wrote, if we want to shift fast fashion consumers, we need to give them affordable alternatives. Goodness, I can talk. But sustainable products can be so cheap, so how will we convert these customers?
So you have to understand one thing that, and I'm going to drop some truth bombs here. Sustainable products are not necessarily more expensive than fast fashion. You have to realize that pricing is as much a branding decision. It's not that one person woke up in the morning and said, oh, organic cotton costs me more, so let me charge that much more. That's not what's going on. H&M and Zara, I'll give you an example. A Zara top in India costs about 4,000 Indian rupees. Their fabric cost is 100 rupees because they are buying cheap viscose from Turkey. They are just running as a manufacturing machine with big margins. And that is why Zara is the owner of Zara is amongst the richest men in the world. If they switch from, say, the polluting viscose to sustainable viscose, their raw material cost will maybe go up by 15%. Sustainable viscose being tensile, micromodal, the lensing materials are actually not that much more expensive. What you are asking about is the consumer perception on what something costs. Please understand that you can buy a t-shirt from a store, say Benetton, for say 2,000 rupees. You can also buy that same t-shirt on Amazon for 150 rupees. The raw material and the manufacturer might be the same. It has no link to sustainability. These are just business decisions brands are taking. You have to convince the consumer you are talking to that the value you are putting on the product is in fact the financial value that you're charging. So if you, let's just say a Louis Vuitton bag that costs say 100,000 Indian rupees. I don't know if people know this, but the most common shape is a bonded canvas bag. It's not even leather. It doesn't cost them 100,000 rupees to make, and that's not why it's expensive. It's because that's how they branded themselves. So certain brands are expensive not because they're sustainable, it's because perhaps it's poorly run. Like, I'm a big proponent of the fact that you have to be sustainable, but you can't stop being an efficient business and taking smart business decisions. So both those things have to go hand in hand. You have to price your stuff right. You have to have efficiencies in your business that you're not wasting money. The sustainable materials are not a problem. And if you give good quality, good storytelling and sustainable materials to your consumers, they will understand the value of the product. And also, if they're hell-bent on buying the $10 or 100 rupee t-shirt from Amazon, then maybe they are not your customer to begin with, because you can't change everyone's mind, but there are people who you can convince.
Wow, super. I think that's such a controversial and
yes,
worthwhile point that you bring up. That's awesome. And I imagine a lot of follow-up. So I think we have time for at least one more question. We'll see if we can do more. Senthil asks, what about downcycle, upcycle sustainable practices in India? So if there are any examples of that you especially love, anything that you've learned firsthand on downcycle and upcycle.
Well, yes, I mean so the circular economy. So back to the first question of can we ever be 100% sustainable? I thought I was there last year, and then conversations around circular economy began. I'm like, damn, that's my blind spot. So yes, so now I'm learning more about that. Here is the loophole in down. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with that movement at the moment is that a lot of brands are coming in and saying, hey, give us dead stock, which means something which no one else is using, it's waste, let me use it. But what is the proof that the material you've used is actually dead stock and not just fresh stuff that's being made? So when you are sourcing dead stock materials to repurpose, because if the environmental resources have already been invested in a bunch of fabric that's sitting around, you want to make sure you're not accidentally feeding an industry that creates more and more materials and then sells it to you as dead stock. So for a material to be considered dead stock, it should be inventory that no one is trying to sell for at least 2 years. Which is not the same as stock that's always there and is being replenished every couple of years. Then you're just feeding a manufacturing cycle. But if it's genuinely waste material or stuff that no one is trying to sell for at least 2 years, then that somewhat qualifies it as dead stock. There's a whole movement for certified, so it's called the Global Recycle Certificate, the GRS certified polyester and nylon. which comes in from China. And my worry is you buy a ton of recycled material and then they're making more fresh polyester to recycle. So do your due diligence to make sure that the stuff you're upcycling actually is waste and you're not featuring a fresh supply chain or not encouraging a fresh supply chain by accident. I will say that even if you are functioning in the focus of recycling, over time, you should step away from any non-biodegradable materials. So great to buy old cotton and to repurpose it, but I would not encourage purchasing too much, say, recycled polyester, because ultimately you're just creating a demand for more polyester. And that's really all I have to say on that one particular aspect.
Super interesting. And also I'm happy that this is already happening in the chat. Many of you work in that space, so feel free to chime in, just like a few of you have been doing. If you either have tips for people, or if you provide upcycling, yeah, feel free to pop it in there. Then maybe, let's see, let me just be realistic about time, because I know we're going to be saying goodbye to you in
we have a good 10 minutes, Eva, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere.
Great. Oh my gosh, okay, we have a ton of burning questions. So maybe because there were so many questions around this issue of cost and real or unreal perception from customers around this, I thought this point was interesting from Deepa. So where if I source directly from weavers, it's cheaper, but when I buy GOTS certified fabrics, so GOTS certified fabrics, they are more expensive. So how does one decide? And maybe if you can talk a little bit about, yeah, these different options that are available, and what if the price points are significantly different? How do you think about that?
So I can't speak specifically to Deepa's question in a very specific way, because I don't have technical knowledge there in terms of what she's buying. You have to compare apples to apples. So the why I begin with responsible entrepreneurship is because I can't help you. Saying community is more impact than not polluting a river. We need to do both, and we're not God. So you wake up one morning, and maybe this is my cop-out, is what are you honestly passionate about? Where can you begin? So you can begin with artisan made. So I work with the community in Kerala for years, because it's in northern Kerala and it's Kannur district, and the textile industry is dying, and they support employing more than 50% women. It's an artisan cooperative, so they have great wages. And we are trying to get them to buy organic cotton raw material. And we're finding that they're locally able to source organic cotton cheaper than I could have ever sourced it. But that's happened after 5 years of working with them. So you have to keep at it, but pick one thing to start with and do it really, really well. And then you get to decide what cause you are trying to support, because there is room for everyone. So what do you, I know this is a horrible thing to say, but back to you, what do you care about? Do you care about employing a particular community and engaging women? Do you care about preserving a particular community's livelihood and them not leaving their villages and coming into the cities to become beggars and bus drivers? Or do you care about the environment and water pollution because that's your cause and you want to buy only organic? This thing that we have a shopping list in front of us to pick and choose is where people are losing their way, which is why unless you are rooted in your own focus and orientation of what you're trying to do, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to be thinking you have these multiple decisions to make. It isn't a decision. When I started, I first and foremost cared about keeping the poor in their hometowns and not having them come into the slums and the horrible, inhuman living conditions of the Delhi area. So I worked only in the artisan sector for 10 years. So because I worked there and I saw that they were doing block printing and dyeing and dumping the water into the river and into their own crops, is when I began to research organic fabric. This is year number 20 of my career, and now working on other things as well. So it's an evolution, and I have to say that if you genuinely care about fashion and about having impact, it's a drug. And if you keep going, it's a lifetime of doing good, one thing at a time. Deepa, if you are comparing fabrics, you have to see if you're comparing apples and oranges or what. So you have to see what, you have to get technical. What is the count of your fabric? What is the construction? What is the drape? What is the look you're trying to achieve? And aesthetically and technically speaking, what is the right fabric for that? If you want to do a really sheer, sexy nightwear thing, handloom will not achieve that. You have to go organic because you have to sell the consumer good quality. You cannot compromise on quality and give a poor product and tell the consumer to buy it because it's having impact. they may or may not care about the impact. They do care about spending the money on something that they want. But you as a designer need to lean into your product. Like, what are the qualities of your product, and figure out what is the best source for them. So for example, if you want to do a traditional paisley print, it is inspired from block printing. Do your research, so you should be block printing it. But let's just say you're doing, these watercolors on your own, you're an artist, and inspired by that, you want to make these kaftans that have shaded colors on them. That can't be block printed, it has to be digitally printed. So it's not, do I do this or do I do that? I'll have to look at what product you're creating, and technically speaking, you have to make the best partner choice, and within that scope, you pick the cheapest option without compromising your ethics. I don't know if that answers her question. I'm doing my best here. It's a very complex question she's asked.
It's such a nuanced one. Thank you so much. And Sonika, I really appreciate Kanak, Deepa, Kritika, Anjali, what you wrote in the chat. I am also appreciating just really hearing about your own journey, Sonika, and being so empathetic, I think, with so many of the entrepreneurs in the industry Disruptor of we can't take on everything at once. Although I get the sense that people have an appetite to, but yeah, just to pick your corner of the world, start there and build and really come from that place of purpose. So I cannot think of a better note to end on. And I think we had a few more questions that we didn't get to. So thank you, Kargi. So what we'll do is we'll share those in the chat, in the Do community, and just invite people to also be in dialogue with each other and just share your own resources. And of course, Sonika, anything that you would like to add to that conversation too.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to answer questions that you guys have. I don't care if you guys email me, I'm happy to answer questions. And the reason I'm mentioning the webinar series that we're doing that's happening in September is that it's a 4-part series, and that covers one topic per webinar. So there's one only on artisan production, one only on organic fabrics, one on entrepreneurship, and one on factory production. So if there's one core thing to your business, I would recommend signing up, because they've actually been priced really low. Because in 90 minutes, you would have come away with specific technical tools and lists and resources to address the one problem in your business. It's everything I know punched into 90 minutes. So I would suggest, please have a look.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And we'll share that on the Do community too. And Sonika is on there as well. So feel free to use that and definitely keep exchanging with each other. But Sonika, thank you so much. I learned a ton. I'm just very inspired by, like you said before we got started, how I consider you an expert, and for you to say it's all about learning, like following
Not an expert.
every day. So
what I am is a geek. I don't quit. Obsessed.
Best quality. All right. Well, thank you so much. So everyone, Sonika is going to head off to connect with some other great people who we will actually talk about in one of our upcoming sessions. But thank you so much, Sonika. Stay healthy.
Thank you guys, lots of love. And I'm on the platform. I'm a little slow because I'm overworked because of COVID, but I'm there for you guys. I can answer whatever questions you have to the best of my ability. So hit me up for resource questions. I'll send you information and links. Happy to do that.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
All right, you guys. Bye. Have a good evening. Thank you, Eva. This was wonderful. Bye.
And everyone else, stay on. We have more to do together, but we'll just say goodbye to Sonika.
Bye.
All right. And really, really nice to see also. Thank you to all of you for just so many rich questions. And again, anything that didn't get answered, feel free to post it right away in the Do community, and I'll look through our chat to see what we didn't cover. So on that note, it's the perfect segue to do a little bit of hands-on activity. So switching from taking in a ton of knowledge and earned experience, stuff that resonates, stuff that raises questions, stuff that you agree with, stuff that you don't agree with. Now we'll have a chance to go into small breakout rooms, and we are going to warm up to an exercise that we'll offer for this coming week to do, which is the theory of change. So I am going to quickly share my screen and introduce a theory of change. Excuse me. Okay. All right. And I'm also curious if people can use the thumbs up function. Who is already familiar with the theory of change as a framework? You can just use the thumbs up. I'm really curious. Great. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so familiar to a few people, new to many. Good. It's a great mix. So I'll just take a couple minutes to introduce this. And please write in the chat. Swarnima is keeping her eye on the chat. If you're having a hard time seeing and I should zoom in at all, let me know. So theory of change is a very popular framework used in business models, and especially in impact-oriented business models. And how we at the Do School use it is to basically take a journey backwards. So for those of you who, I think it's most of you who were here last session, we started out very much connected to our vision and what drives us individually. The exercise that you did this past week around dreaming into your future. What does your ideal day look like? So we've been warming up to the vision of the impact that you want to have and really what feeds you day to day as a person and as a founder. And so the theory of change starts there, in the future, in your vision. And then we actually walk backwards to see what are the short and medium term changes that you want to see, and those are what we consider outcomes. Walking backwards from that, how do you actually measure the changes? And walking backwards from that, what kinds of activities, products, services do you offer that will bring you ultimately to your vision? So to just give you a concrete example, I thought it'd be helpful to do something that's not related to sustainable fashion, just to shake up our brains a little bit. So there is an organization that was really concerned about deforestation. And they came up with these super interesting bricks used for heating, made out of bio-waste, so made out of human and plant waste. And people could actually burn these to create cleaner and more sustainable fuel instead of cutting down trees and contributing to deforestation. So their ultimate vision, and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit here just so it's easier to follow along. Their ultimate vision was to reduce deforestation so the rainforest could grow back. And it relates to several sustainable development goals, which we'll touch on a little bit throughout the rest of the program. So that touched on sustainable development goals related to sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, keeping our green oxygen producing forests alive. So as they walked backwards, they said, okay, well, if this is our vision, what can we actually do to reduce deforestation and give people an alternative instead of cutting down trees for firewood? So, pardon me, I'm gonna move over to this part of the theory of change. So they said, okay, well, we can test out these bio bricks made from bio waste. We know that this plant waste that would otherwise be just a lost resource can be repurposed into these bio bricks, and people can make fire at home, and it's actually a cleaner fire. So the outcomes are that their customers would actually use these bio bricks instead of wood. Well, how would they know that that's what's happening? They would see they're producing and they're selling these bio bricks as an alternative to wood or charcoal. And so the activities that they do are they're creating and selling these bio-waste bricks. So pretty intuitive. And again, just type in the chat if you have any questions about this. So I think this is an especially interesting part for you all. And it relates to what Sonika brought up of how do we actually measure our progress on these points? How do we actually see if we're on track? So if you think, and this is a little bit of interactive time, and you can write in the chat, if you think about indicators if you were producing and selling these bio-waste bricks, what is one of the ways that you would know that you're on track to having these be like an in-demand source of alternative fuel? What kinds of activities or outputs would you want to measure? And what I'll do is I'm going to give you a little preview to warm you up to this. So go ahead and write in the chat, if you were thinking in this person's shoes, what are the kinds of activities that you would measure? For example, you might look at how many bio bricks are produced, how many are sold, super basic. And I'm just going to pause as I look in the chat as well, just to see what people are. Yeah, awesome. Conversions, how many customers, using different verticals. Oh, I mean, really interesting point. Yeah. We'll get to that too. Receptivity, awesome. I think that's a great point. So how much are people really adopting this different way of creating fuel? Price difference, interesting. So seeing if you're competitive or not. People, kind of word of mouth, are people talking with each other about these biobricks as a resource? Awesome, great. You guys are already ahead of the game. So then that's moving from activities to outputs. As we think about how we would figure out if we're on track with our target outcomes, which is that people are really using these biobricks instead of cutting down trees, what are some of the things that we would measure or look for to see if we're on track with that? Great. Reaction of competitors, super interesting, great. Oh, and interesting to hear, Tifa, that you already are related to this space, great. How much plant waste is being used to produce, keeping a track of demand and supply, great. Lovely, I think you're bringing up ideas that actually are new to us, great. Time required to manufacture, super interesting. So to build on that, I love that actually you all are raising quite a few new points. So some of the things that they looked at was the percentage of reduction in firewood sales. So related to what you brought up, surveys, so either verbal surveys or written surveys about people's behavior change, shifting from cutting trees to using these biobricks, and then how many repeat customers. Awesome, exactly, reduction in sales of wood, decrease in deforestation, which leads us to this last point, decrease in deforestation. Boom, completely, you all got it. So this is actually a big bulk of the exercise that we'll offer after the session today for you to do over this coming week. We'll include a PDF that goes over the theory of change. And the intent here is to give structure to what you're already doing or what you might be starting to do, depending on the on different maturities of ventures, which I know there's a big range in this group. And it's also, I know many of you were asking, how do you actually tell the story that will draw customers to you and say, yes, this brand is authentically sustainable. This brand cares about the people creating these materials and creating this fashion and creating these lifestyle goods. I trust them, and I trust them because they're sharing specific ways that they're making a difference. So that's our intent behind this, is to really equip you to have details for that kind of storytelling. So, and I love this point, Shilpa, that you brought up too, also looking at the health of people managing the waste for biobricks. Great point. So with that, I will pause, and what we're going to do, let me just come back to all of you in the main group. So what we're going to do now is we're going to send you into breakout rooms, and you'll be around 3 people, some more, some less. And you're just going to share verbally. No need to write it down because this is a warm up for you, but share verbally the answer to 2 questions. So one question is related to that vision part of the theory of change. What changes as a result of your venture? So what's the ultimate vision in the long term? What changes as a result of your venture? Second question is, how do you measure that change? So this is around the outcomes theme. And I think it builds on really well what Sonika was bringing up. Start small and start with where, you know, I love how she said your corner of the world. What would be an early indicator that you're on track or off track? What kind of measures would you look at to see if you're on track for this long-term change? So again, just to repeat those, question number 1 is what will change as a result of your venture? Question number 2 is how will you measure that change? And so I'm going to set out breakout rooms, and you'll have a little bit longer this time. So we'll actually take just under 10 minutes to share. So you can go a little bit deeper, give each other feedback. Feel free to challenge each other if you feel like it could be even more specific or if it's unclear. And then we'll come back into the main group and we'll have a chance to hear just from a couple groups about their takeaways. So let me go ahead. We will send you there. All right, so there'll be, let's see, 2 to 3 of you per room. So you will be sent automatically into the magic of the world of Zoom. And anyone who has any questions, feel free to raise your hand in the group. And let me just take a second to see. I know people had a couple questions in the chat. And also, yes, great. Let me answer these before we send you into breakout rooms. So great. Okay, so we got a question. The vision outcome output window wasn't clear. Great. Okay, the font might have been a little bit small. So just in case other people can see that super well, the vision is what is your long-term vision for what will change as a result of your venture. So for example, the rate of deforestation will go down. Or in Sonika's example, people will be able to stay in the villages where they live. They won't need to migrate to cities and experience terrible working conditions. So that was the vision. The outcome is what changes will you see in your target group in the medium term as a result of your venture. And the output is what do you produce or create in your venture that leads to those outcomes. So I hope that's clarifying. Okay, let me see. Great, I think we answered that. Awesome. Okay, and Harshita, did you still have a question that you'd like clarification on before we send people into breakout rooms?
No, Eva, no question.
You good? All right. Okay, well then let's go ahead. We're going to send you off, so enjoy. And again, you will have, let's see, I think we'll give you 9 minutes, which feels like a luxury compared to our usual few minutes. So enjoy. Again, feel free to challenge each other. I'll repost those questions in the chat so you can see them in your groups, but enjoy, and I hope you get to learn from each other as well. There we go. Folks, as you're coming back, I would love to hear if people would be willing to share, either from you or from someone else in your group, a vision of the change that you want to make. Would love for people to write that into the chat. I know for me, it's always really, it sparks a lot of ideas, and it's also really energizing to see the impact that people are having. So please write in the chat, and especially for people who are coming back to the main group now, feel free to write in the chat either you or one of the people from your group the vision for the long-term change that you want. Awesome. Generate relevant wealth. Anjali, ooh, I want to hear more about what relevant wealth is. I'm curious. Awesome. Yeah, and please, I see other people typing too. Please share. Welcome back. For those of you who are joining the main group, please share in the chat your vision for the long-term change that you want to make. Would really love for more people to be hearing that. And also feel free, if one of the people in your group, if you found their vision especially inspiring, feel free to share that too. Really interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Varsha. Really interesting about sustainability being a daily normal and becoming democratized. You all that raise it, I want to hear more about this. Awesome. I'm so glad, Cynthia, that this was useful too. Yeah, I really enjoy the chance for you all to meet each other. There's a lot of common ground in the room. So for those of you who are still typing, please, keep sharing your visions. Women participating in the family decision making, awesome. Feel free to thumbs up too if you see visions that that you especially resonate with. I want to thumbs up that one. To have a sustainable wardrobe in every home. Love it. Changing consumption patterns to be more mindful and conscious. Really nice. Sustaining, oh, they're buzzing in now. This is great. Sustaining handcraft by bringing in next generation artisans from inclusive and diverse backgrounds. Something that so many of you are working on. Really cool. Yeah, Anjali, I share this. It's so nice to hear you talking about your passions. Awesome. Create awareness and getting people more receptive. Yeah. Train the younger generation of weavers to continue the heritage of loin loom weaving. Really neat, Margaret. Thank you. To have more and more women tailors in my company. Yeah. Empowering the underserved communities to have equal opportunities and human rights. It's awesome. Changing the vision of how one looks at clothes itself. Beautiful. 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 Well, we are just about to close for the day. So just a note from our end. Super appreciate all of your, as you said, Swarnima, earlier, just such insightful questions and comments. And also, I was especially glad to see people sharing resources around organic products and different sources that you use or that you yourself offer. So please keep that up. So for this coming week, we will post today, within the next about hour or two, we'll post the learning material, which is basically the theory of change framework. So we invite you to do that over the coming week. Hopefully that can really offer some good support that helps you in your marketing, in your business planning, in the multiple stages of the ventures that you're each at. And closing for today, I wanted to offer a similar thing. This is our closing ritual. Please share one thing that you will take with you today. So it could be something you appreciated that someone said or did. Could be something that was controversial that you need to kind of think about and figure out your own stand on. Could be a question that you're sitting with. But one thing that you will take with you from today. And we will take the last minute of our time together live to share that with you. These are great. Awesome. Thank you, Kellyanne. You really missed it there. Yep. Yeah, so much common ground, right? Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, super interesting. I'm also sitting with the pricing of sustainable clothing section. Great. Aw, thank you, Mayra. Really nice. Channelizing the passion better. Love that. Great. Really nice. Oh, it sounds like you all had good conversations in the breakout rooms too. I'm really glad. Thank you for giving each other fresh thoughts. It's awesome. Beautiful. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you all back in the DO community and to our next session this coming Wednesday. As always, reach out. Any questions, please keep sharing burning questions and your own ways of tackling them with each other. And also just special thanks, Swarnima. So appreciate all the work you did over the last few months to bring so many of these people together and so many of our mentors together. And thank you for co-hosting today.
My pleasure. I always feel so empowered and so encouraged when I see so many female entrepreneurs from the global south and especially in South Asia. It's always my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, Emma.
Yes, I echo that. Same here. All right, we will let Philip know that he was missed. and that we need our our singular male in 2 weeks when he comes back. But yeah, thank you so much, and we'll post the recording in the Do community as well. So have a wonderful week and stay healthy and take care of yourselves and each other. And yeah, wishing you all a good rest of the week. Thank you.
Bye everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, UN Women and We Empower Asia team. Cheers.